Welcome to the What's Our Verdict TV podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder, and I'm here with my co-hosts Ian Anderson
Some shit.
and Jay Vincent.
Is it lagging?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. All right,
It
hold
might
on.
be
I'm catching up.
Looks like Jay. Oh, I love live. It's so much fun. Well, it
Hold
looks
up,
like
pull it.
looks
This
like
is
we lost
something
Ian, and then
I've done before. Let me pull out.
yep. Oh, Ian's back.
It was working fine before.
I know. All of a sudden, it's just not, and then now we got Jay back.
Hey, pulling out works every time. Woo!
Stop.
Oh, it's
It's what, Ian?
He's lost in the inner space of the internet.
I know.
am I back now?
Oh, there- he's
Yeah, you're back
you're
now.
back.
Yeah, it switched to my internet. My bad. It was on
Oh yeah. Gotta love it. All right.
technical
No,
difficulties. It's all good.
Technical difficulties are fun.
Don't worry, just watch us fumble through the beginning every single time.
You just
It's
never
part
know
of the
what's gonna
charm.
happen with live. It's all good.
True.
So let's jump right in this. So do you ever guys find wow, I can't even talk now. See what happened? Do you guys ever find yourself wondering if you should take the time to set your TiVo to record a show each week, spend the money on that streaming service, or invest hours into binging that show that all of your friends say you should watch? Well, we're here to answer that question for you. We put TV shows on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, and let you know our verdict. To check out our other episodes, if you're joining us on Facebook or Instagram after our live, you can head to our website using the link in our bio. If you're on YouTube, the link's in the description down below. You can also listen to us wherever fine podcasts are found: Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Ghana, just to name a few. And as always, it's completely free no matter where you're listening. Today we're reviewing Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian, The Tragedy. The night is dark and full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen this episode and you want to avoid spoilers, get out now. Catch the replay here on Facebook or on YouTube. Or on Tuesday, our podcast will go live with everything we talk about. So you can check it out there. If you don't care about spoilers, hang out. We're going to chat about it. So let's dive right in, guys. This episode opens with Mando and Grogu heading to Tython based on, of course, the advice of Ahsoka Tano, where they can take him to the temple. So it was really interesting. And I loved how this episode kind of began when they got to there. And it was like this dad playing with his son and trying to teach him all this skills. He's trying to keep him up on his little force powers and was all celebrating and did that whole, oh no, I'm not mad, you're good. Because I love that he drops the ball because he's like, oh, he just yelled because he was so excited about it. So it was a really interesting way to start.
That little ball.
I was thinking about the process. Like if Mando were to be his dad, he could train and teach this kid for 30 years and the kid still might not even be able to speak. Can you imagine putting that much effort and never seeing him get older? Because he's 50 years old, right?
Yeah, he's 50 now, 50-ish. Yeah.
It was so cute watching them together, I thought. And honestly, I don't like the name, but I could easily call him Gorgu just to get a reaction out of him, like Mando is doing over and over again. Like, Gorgu,
Yeah.
hey, Gorgu, yeah. But that's happened to me where I've accidentally not even me, it was my brother. My brother, I don't know, he acts like kids are animals. And so when my daughter was a toddler, he'd come into the room, he has a real deep voice, and he'd be like, hey, what are you doing? And she'd stop and freeze, like she did something wrong. And that's exactly what it reminded me of. But yeah, and then he when they get down, well, first of all, fucking jetpack, they switched to the jetpack, which was really fucking cool. I was like, jetpack, fuck yes. And he calls that taking the top off or windows down.
Yeah.
And then when he gets to the rock, I imagine this is how I even wrote in my notes that this must it's questions, everybody question to JJ. Does this look Jedi to you? When he walks up, he's like, come on, kid, what is this? This look Jedi enough to you? This magic rock? He even calls it a magic rock.
Yeah, I did laugh. And it's funny that you say that because I had in my notes, I was like, I want to know if there's the rest of a temple underneath that thing. Because what that looks like is the top of a Jedi temple. And so I couldn't help but wonder. I was like, I wonder if there's in that mountain that's underneath that part, if that's the rest of the temple, and if you'd be able to access it. So that's the kind of nerd shit my brain went to. But yeah, I did get. Does this look Jedi to you?
I mean, it does. Honestly, I thought it was going to open up, like you said, and I didn't even know what it looked like. But just like the setting, when he put his hand on it and it turned blue, I was like, oh yeah, what do you know? It's going to fucking open, just like he said he would. But man, he's putting a little too much faith in. Well, I guess I can't say that now after seeing him kick ass at the end of the episode. Spoilers, but a little too much faith in Baby Yoda because he's like, "Come on, kid, here we are. Let's get this done." And he's like looking at butterflies and shit. He's like, "The girl said you know how to do this."
Yeah, it was really interesting, and to kind of touch on Ian what you were talking about with the older version where you just never know when you're going to see the fruits of all your labor with this kid. There's online, you ought to search it. I'm not going to bring it up, but you ought to search it. There's somebody did some fan art of an adult Grogu, like, and he's decked out in Mandalorian armor, and he's got the shoulder piece that's got the Mudhorn insignia on it.
Oh,
and
shit, that's awesome.
And he's sitting there with his hand out in front of him, and he's floating the little ball above his hand. It's pretty bitchin'. Actually, yeah, if you just like Google grown up Grogu, it'll pop up. Like he's sitting on this rock and he's just kind of chilling with this, and it looks pretty cool. I was like, somebody's got too much time on their hands, but I wish I could draw that well. I'd have done it too.
You know, honestly, that kind of, I guess that is what I wanted. I was trying to think what my topic should be today, and I think it has a lot to do with the Razor Crest, which fucking A, man. The Razor Crest.
Yeah. So was the tragedy the Razor Crest or Grogu getting taken away?
Yeah.
I know, right? And that's a perfect title for this episode. I didn't even know that was the title until you said so, but it's insane that it's only been 2 seasons and we have these little things that we're all, I think this whole episode, like last episode was with Ashoka, or it was just like a bunch of drops of shit that we can't wait for. And this is like a bunch of drops back to shit that we already know in the lore of the Mandalorian show. So the ball, when he picks it up from the dirt and then he finds the Beskar spear, I'm like, yes, fuck yeah. And then even the Death Troopers, when they show up, that's like, finally getting back to Moff Gideon. And the Razor Crest, I was like, man, when that blew up, because I was thinking from the episode, I was like, I was so glad that they have this little ball that they can keep going back to show us like how much they care. And then it fucking blew up, but he finds the ball. And I was like, man, this show is only 14 episodes in or some shit. And we already have all these callbacks. We're now missing the Razor Crest. It's just gone. I have to go look for it.
They'll build it in about a day. It'll be back. Day of work, some Jawas, we're good.
It's true. I gotta go look for it in Fortnite now, and I don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah. Well, I was laughing. I texted Ian about it. I was like, man, what a crate we were texting. And I was like, yeah, so much for that fixing the Razor Crest in no time. I told him,
even
like, if Queel was still alive, he'd be done.
Yeah. Even Boba Fett is a callback. Like this was the episode of callbacks to bring it all together for the grand finale, which is going to be fucking crazy.
2 more episodes. Well, let's talk about Boba. So that was the coolest thing. So I got goosebumps and I was like cheering and shit out loud by myself in my room watching this thing, in my game room watching this thing, as the Slave One, which is Boba's ship, comes flying in. I was just peeing myself a little.
So the ship. I had no idea.
Oh yeah, that's that ship you first see it in The Empire Strikes Back in the original trilogy, and then you see a version of it with Jango and Boba when they're on and I can't remember the name of the clone planet off the top of my head, but
Camino.
Yeah, you had me. Yes. So when they're flying, exactly. When they're on Camino, you see the blue and silver version of it for Jango Fett, and then you see it again throughout there's a couple times in the Clone Wars and show, and then Rebels that you'll see a young Boba growing up as a bounty hunter, and you see that ship. So yeah, Slave One, man, that's the name of that ship. It's iconic.
Did you know it was so before seeing the ship, did you know it was Boba? Because even when I saw him face to face, I of course was like, "That's Django or Jenga,"
Mm-hmm.
but because I thought that's what we discussed it being, and then he says, or the girl says his name, which that fucking girl's awesome.
Oh
I
yeah.
like her more than Ahsoka. She's pretty fucking cool.
Wow. I can't go that far, but I have a history with Ahsoka. But I do, yeah. So obviously, we see when Boba shows up, and I knew it was Boba because Django dies in the sequel trilogy or the prequel trilogy.
Oh yeah.
He dies in Attack of the Clones, the second one of the prequel trilogy. So I knew it was Boba, and it was really cool because you see the scarring on his face from when he was, which I'm assuming, and it's all assumption, is from when he was in the Sarlacc pit. Had to do with the acidic way that when he was being digested. So the damage to his armor matches what was probably done to his face and the rest of his body. But he has Fennec Shand, who we thought died in the first season, but we now know whose boots it was that we saw at the end of that episode on Tatooine, and he obviously
lost the Spurs in this one though.
Yeah, but he obviously replaced some parts with her with some mechanical parts like they did with Luke, which was a nice callback to where pretty much anything in Star Wars can be replaced with droid parts or robotics of some sort, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I really enjoyed having Ming-Na Wen is great. That's the actress that plays Fennec Shand. She was the original voice of the cartoon version of Mulan, and she also has been in the Marvel show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for the last 7 years.
That's where I know her from.
Yeah, so she was Agent May in that show. So she's a big Disney staple. So it was really good to see her, and I really enjoy her. She's a great star, great action star, great actress. So it was fun to see her, and then you tie her into somebody that you actually come to like because she's making deals on the fly with Mando as the fight's going on, and she's wrecking some stormtroopers, man. It was great.
That whole siege, it reminded me of almost like a World War II siege because they had more space mortars, a space Gatling gun, which the guy even starts shooting at that boulder. I'm like, why the fuck would you shoot a boulder, dude? Get out the way. But
and he is a stormtrooper.
Those mortars looked like they were like little M80s. Like they were like so anticlimactic when it came to the explosion. Like you're, oh man, a mortar, and then it's like poof.
Yeah, a little rock shoots up into the sky. That's it.
Just some dust. Yeah.
It's more of like a noise, like a non-lethal noise type of weapon, honestly. Something they disperse into crowds to just shut them the fuck up.
You know what it sounded like, Ian, and this is bad. Except were you on the? You were. It sounds like the commercials from the freaking swing boat.
I know what you're saying.
If you haven't, you got to go check out our episode about Swing Vote in the podcast. Wherever you listen to your podcast, there's a shameless plug, but there's a commercial we did Swing Vote where kids are going up in puffs of smoke. That's what that sounded like, actually. So you should check that out. It was a funny conversation. So big things with Boba. He wants his armor. There's this whole question about who he is. I loved that he actually, first of all, Boba handled some shit with some stormtroopers, and that fight where he's running through with the gaffy stick, the sand people stick, and just mauling these freaking stormtroopers. And I love that you see the crushed armor. He's pushing the sharp end through the armor into the dude. He bashes the dude's helmet to pieces. It was just a great scene to see that Boba is just as badass as us Star Wars fans have always wanted him to be. And then he goes into the Razor Crest and steals the armor back, which I love. And then comes out and kicks even more ass with laser beams out of his arms, blaster beams out of his kneecap armor. I'm like, where the hell is this guy keeping all these guns?
That's such like an old guy move too. He's like, fucking neat. Pow pow. Yeah.
It was so great. I loved every second of that fight with seeing Boba in action, seeing the old armor. I love that they made it so that this old dude who's kind of fat didn't fit him anymore. Like it just, you looked like, yeah, that armor's old, dude. Like you're getting old.
Especially like over the robe.
Yeah.
He had going on. I was like, It kind of works. Just like don't show the lower half where he's still got nothing on there. But
Yeah. Oh, so funny. But then they really drop this big bomb. So they show after everything's happened, talking about Boba, he shows his chain code to prove that the armor is his, which has been translated. If you guys haven't seen, because
by the way, look right here, boom, Mandalorian chain code. It's already. I haven't looked at it. It's just fucking.
Yeah.
I have a million of these notifications.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the chain code. So how it reads is this language reads from top to bottom, left to right. So when you're reading it, it actually reads down like this, and then from this side to this side. So it's an interesting
kind of like Arabic.
Kind of, yes.
Arabic goes backwards a little bit.
And so this
Arabic
one,
from right to left.
yeah, Arabic's right to left. This one's left to
you're
right, but it is top to bottom. So when you read a word, so for example, the way that they've translated what they could see, it was the words foundling and then took into is what you can see, and then the year the, and then Concord Dawn, and Concord Dawn is the planet that Django is from, and then Mentor Jast, which everyone is assuming based on us nerds that it's Jaster, from referring to Jaster Muriel, and I'll tell you about him in a second. But and then Father Fett, and then Boba Fett. So it shows it's basically his tree after becoming a foundling, where he was from, where he was taken into, and then who took him in. And Jaster Muriel in old canon. So this is the old canon that they got rid of. There was a series of comics after the Clone War, or after the Attack of the Clones movie, that was about Jango Fett. And Django was in that lore, he was Mandalorian. He was true Mandalorian, born. His family was killed, and he was taken in. He was adopted by Jaster Muriel, who at the time it eventually forms a group called what they called the True Mandalorians. And at the time, there were 3 different factions as they were fighting. There was a pacifist faction, there were the True Mandalorians, and then there was Death Watch. And Death Watch were the militant, crazy ones. And this is the old lore again. So Jaster Muriel eventually becomes the Mandalore. So through this battle, he becomes the leader of Mandalore. Jaster is killed during this war by Death Watch, and Django becomes the Mandalore. And then as more war goes on, this is the Mandalorian Civil War in old canon. So during this war, Django is dethroned, sold into slavery. He breaks free from slavery after a number of years, goes back, gets his armor, and then leaves Mandalore and becomes a bounty hunter, and who we see in Attack of the Clones with Boba. He becomes the blueprint for the clone army at that point. So that's the old lore. So it seems like they're tying in some of the old lore, as they've been doing throughout this show, bringing some of that Legends lore into the new lore. So I don't know how much they'll tie into. We already have Death Watch, but they're who basically it's seeming like they're leading toward who this extreme faction that up until now Din Djarin has been a member of, where you don't take off your helmet, you're the foundlings, things like that. That was Death Watch who saved him. We know that for a fact based on the new canon. So I'm really interested to see if during his spin-off show, now that we know he's getting one, if there's going to be some answers around who Jaster Muriel is in the new canon, the new Civil War, how they tie into, because they did mention that his dad that Django fought in the Civil War.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say, they do say that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see how they're going to tie. They're pulling elements from the old Legends canon and into the new canon, and how they're going to tie that all together. I've just been geeking out ever since Thursday morning or Friday morning at 1 a.m. when I watched the show. So it's just been so much fun for me because there's so much old tie-in, and everything about this episode is like an old school tie-in. Like you're saying, Jay, even the title, The Tragedy, is a reference to, we're talking about Jedi stuff, which we're going to talk about in a minute with the kid, but the tragedy, one of the most famous lines and most memed lines in all of Star Wars is the tragedy of Darth Plagueis, man. Are you kidding me? Have you ever heard the tragedy of the Sith Lord Darth Plagueis? And as soon as I saw the name The Tragedy, I'm like, oh shit, that's a callback. I don't care who you are. That's a reference directly to Sidious telling
He's the Dark Lord who tried to get. Yeah, he's the one. Okay, you're the one who told him that Anakin can bring people back from life if he goes to the dark side or something like that.
So Darth Plagueis was Palpatine's master. He was the one that found Palpatine, created Palpatine, and Palpatine tells Anakin in the space opera scene of Revenge of the Sith, have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And he says, no. He goes, wouldn't figure that you would, and no Jedi is going to tell you it. And then he tells him the story about this guy that can manipulate the midichlorians, which is a tie-in to the show. We're talking about the M count, right? They want this kid's blood for midichlorians to do whatever they're doing. And so that tie-ins there, and then how he, and that's the story that really was kind of almost the catalyst for Anakin trying to save Padme from death, because he tells him that Plagueis figured it out and that his apprentice learned everything that he knew how to do, which was Plagueis. So he finds out it was the big twisty story. But I love that tie-in. Like, I was like, holy shit, there is so much.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, down to even just the title. But
I was wondering with the chain code real quick if they did drop any bombs for like big Star Wars fans like yourself. I was thinking, like, while I was watching, I was like, I wonder if there's anything in there that people are going to decrypt and it's going to like be this big thing. Sure enough, I got notifications. But I know I am excited, and also that kind of brings me to the Darksaber, because it was acting. So that's a Jedi weapon, right?
Yes.
Okay, then that answers a lot of questions. So, but
yeah,
I'm so excited at how they tied all this in.
Yeah, quick reminder: the Darksaber was the weapon of the only Mandalorian Jedi in history, and so that's where it came from. That's why there's so much lore around it. For whoever has it in Mandalore is the leader of can at least make a claim to be the Mandalore and lead the Mandalorian people, and why Bo-Katan wants it. I'm sure that's how, during that Civil War and the Purge, is how Gideon got it. So I'm very interested to that. But let's talk about Grogu here. So as Boba flies in on the Slave One, all of a sudden we see he turns around to get the kid, and he's wrapped in this blue tunnel of Force power, right? This towering piece of the Force, which is really cool. And it's impenetrable. It's almost like it's created this shield around the kid. Obviously, we see Mando try to get into it to grab the kid like 3 times and gets knocked back. And so he ends up saying, "Oh, I'll just protect you."
Yeah, he's like, I'll give you some time. And then even that made me wonder about when Boba and the girl were like talking about having a sniper on him. I'd be like, good fucking luck. He's got this blue shit around him right now. I'm trying to get to him.
Yeah. Because I don't think they knew that might, and I don't know if it was blaster impenetrable, but I would assume so.
I don't know either, but yeah.
Yeah,
also,
that's crazy.
His face when they took him away, it makes me never want to even attempt to shoot at him. So
yeah.
But was that like a location beacon? Was he like calling all the Jedis like a transformer?
I don't know. Like a transformer. I don't know. I and that's kind of one of the things that I got really excited about with the episode, because it's new. I've never seen really anything like this in my awareness of Star Wars lore, and I know there's some gaps there that I know there's things that I've missed in some of the comics and stuff, but I've never seen that before, and my brain's sitting there going, that's cool as hell, and I want to know who's going to respond to it. Like, that's my big question, because the possibilities are huge, right? It might be somebody we don't know about at all. It could be somebody on the dark end of this deal, right? I mean, who knows?
The way he was choking people out, man. I got a little
seriously, like, he's got a little darkness in him. But you've got Luke Skywalker that's out there. You might have, again, from the Rebels side, you have the kid, and my brain is just not working right now, but the kid that was in Rebels that was Force sensitive and was working to become a Jedi under Kanan Jarrus. And so you have there's options out there. So it's very interesting to me to see who might answer that call. And it's obvious that he's chosen some form of training or reaching out to the Force. Like Ahsoka said, he gets to choose his path. So I'm just curious. Ezra Bridger, that's who might answer that call too. So especially now that they've dropped it. Somewhere in there, they know where that Thrawn is back, because the last time we saw Ezra, he was with Thrawn. So I'm very interested to see if anyone, and if someone does, who will answer it, because I can't imagine you would ignore that. That seemed like quite a powerful call.
I mean, it knocked him out. Which, by the way, did we know that was that the Death Watch that came to get him? Who the guys that I didn't know were droids until now.
Yeah, so those are Dark Troopers. Those are the ones that we saw with Gideon at the end of the Siege episode, where they go into the base. You see Gideon on the ship, and he's got all those Darth Vader looking soldiers in the behind him, and that's where those came from. And again, those come from a video game lore, and there were human versions of them, and then there were the droid versions. So they're obviously leaning into the droid versions. That's who you saw in the games mostly, and then in the comics later, they added some of the more human exoskeleton versions of them. But it was a really cool callback and tie into the games.
Do you think that they're an upgraded version of like what killed Mando's family? Because to me, they look like sentient from X-Men. So when I saw it in the first season, I was like, oh man, that's the ultimate sentient. And then these new ones, I was like, they kind of look more badass than that first one.
Yeah. So in the first one, the ones that killed Mando's family, and you see was standing out when they open up that thing, and those were the B2 battle droids. So those were the super battle droids and you see those throughout Clone Wars and throughout the Clone Wars television show, and then you've seen them in comics, but they were part of the Clone Wars. And then yes, I would assume that these are a very much upgraded version of those. They look very intimidating with their red jetpack coming out of their feet and the black armor.
Short term, I'm super excited to see what those can do. And not only that, but another short-term excitement that I have is Baba's sticking around, and Bo-Katan is out looking for the Darksaber, and I'm really hoping I get to see all 5 Mandalorians going at it, because that's gotta happen.
So the only thing that I know for sure is they did an interview with Sasha Banks, who was one of the other Mandalorians with Bo-Katan, and she said that her time on the season was done. Now, that doesn't mean that she may not be there, and she wasn't on set, but a stunt double who's in the armor may be there. So I'm with you. I'm hoping that all of these things converge, right? So you have all of these Mandalorians looking for the same thing. They're chasing Gideon now, right? So there's no reason for Boba and Din Djarin to not show up and have at the same time Bo-Katan and her 3, or maybe you get a whole army of the Night Owls, because there's got to be more than 3. So I'm really hoping, because the amount of dark troopers that were on that ship.
Yeah.
I realize that we see Din Djarin taking some blaster bolts all the time, which is the one thing about this show that's starting to bother me a little bit. I'm not going to lie, because look, there's gaps in this dude's armor, and yet Stormtroopers are historically the worst shots in the universe, in the galaxy, and yet these guys hit his armor every time. And maybe it's because they're aiming for the parts that aren't his armor. I don't know, but that part, watching him when he's standing there and he and Fennec Shand are going before Boba shows up, and he's just taking blaster bolt after blaster bolt, and she's standing behind him. I'm like, there's a lot of gaps in that armor for him to just be.
It's like, the Dark Knight paradox, you know. They're like, yeah, you can get stabbed. All right, fuck it, whatever. Yeah. As long as I don't get shot with these things, I guess I can't get shot as well as get stabbed in these fucking plates. Fucking Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
But I do hope that. So I do hope for that. I can see where she might not come back until the 3rd season. I really don't hope they tease this fight too much, but I want to learn a lot more. They showed us just a taste of Moff Gideon, and he was like, ooh la la, and I'm like, oh, he is kind of like a fucking sadistic. It's 2 sadists. It's Baby Yoda and Moff Gideon. They love each other. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, Gus is gonna, or Giancarlo Esposito is gonna have such a good time doing this, and I want to see that. I want to see where he's been this whole time, what the fuck he's been doing. Like, I don't care if they backtrack it. I think it's gonna be very interesting to have even though I think he leads to Thrawn or other things, but to have him be basically the big bad for all the Mandalorians right now.
Yeah. I think so a couple things. My prediction is that next week's episode may be a backstory-ish into Moff Gideon. And the reason I say that is because of the way that they made that ending where he's there with Grogu. They have this little interaction, and I just don't see them having, unless the next episode is like gathering the troops to take on Gideon. I just have a hard time. I feel like we're going to see the Doctor trying to extract material from, or more DNA from Grogu. And in the midst of that, you're hearing a little bit about Gideon's story. The one thing I have figured out about this show over the last 14 episodes is they're never going to give you everything that you want. So I don't think we're going to see a lot, but I think we might see some of Gideon's story. That's my hope, and that's my prediction. I could be way off base. That's
well, I mean,
just
already
out what I would do as a writer. So
they are hinting at it. So that's what all of this, like, that I was talking about, like, even besides the ooh la la part, he's basically like, have you seen this in all these years? You know, it's like, well, wait, what's happened in all these years now? But no, you're probably right, because they rounded up the troops in this episode. He went and got the sheriff, who's now Kara, is now a sheriff. And I don't really see them, or Marshall, but I don't see them like, maybe they could, but I hope they don't. I hope they go with where you say they're going.
I hope so too. Some cool things though too at the end of the episode. So obviously we know Grogu gets kidnapped by the Dark Troopers and taken to
which good call, by the way. I remember, I think it was you that called that a couple episodes back.
Yeah, I felt like that's where we were going, that eventually something had to change, where there had to be more than just them chasing them, that they had to get it, and it had to flip to where now he's got to save him. So we'll see how it goes. But I loved the interaction that you're talking about with Moff Gideon and Grogu. And I cheered out loud when they opened the door of that cell. One, it's almost a direct replica to the cell from the original Star Wars A New Hope, where you see Leia laying in the little bed and Luke comes in to save her. And, oh, you're a little short for a stormtrooper, aren't you? So really cool moment there. But then you see Grogu hucking stormtroopers around, and Moff Gideon's like, wait, just let him throw some fuckers around a little bit. This is funny shit. Like, I was like, it was so cool. Like, and it, to me, another thing that I got out of that besides the entertainment was that he's more embracing that side of himself now. He's seen Ahsoka. He's got, his protector a little bit there, even though he's in a bad spot. But I think it's showing that he's more willing to use the Force in more moments now that he's seen that it's okay and he's been encouraged. So I took that part, but I loved that throwing stormtroopers around part.
We might need to think of him more as like Kevin Hart from Secret Life of Pets, because if you want to play on how to use your image, just go to the thermal imaging that he looks at when they take him away. Baby Yoda's eyes are like he's on fucking ecstasy, dude. They're so big, and your heart is like broken. You're like, no. Yeah. And then next scene, he's just throwing motherfuckers around.
Oh yeah, it was great.
That scene was kind of interesting, and maybe I misinterpreted it, but I was kind of looking at it as the fear that was causing him to like throw these guys around, like getting worried that when he started choking them. I'm kind of like, dude, you're not supposed to be doing that stuff out of hate. Like, and I gotta feel like that's what's happening right now. But
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Kind of makes me nervous. I don't want to see a bad baby Grogu.
we totally could.
A mix for gremlins.
That's another meme.
Almost what I'm hoping for.
That's another meme I saw this week was, the guy that's sitting on the table and it's like, here's a fact, and it says, change my mind or whatever. Someone put Baby Yoda is just a shaved, whatever the gremlin. Not what's the gremlin that's not the bad gremlin? What Mogwai? What's his name?
I can't remember.
Anyway, I just remember his name.
Yeah, he's just a shaved him, and then it has a picture of him. You're like, oh shit, it actually.
That does make total sense.
Yeah. So there was one more deep cut thing that I wanted to talk about. There's just in passing that made me laugh out loud a couple of times. I had to rewind it and make sure I heard it right. So during that scene when Gideon shows him the dark saber and is talking about the lightsabers and have you seen these before? Oh, you're a little young for this. He talks about you can put your eye out playing with something like this. So everybody a lot of times that isn't deep cut Star Wars lore goes right to obviously A Christmas Story with the BB gun.
Yeah.
Shoot your eye out. But in one of the most memed images in the original New Hope Star Wars movie is Luke Skywalker looking down the tube of his father's lightsaber. And all he would have to do is turn it on and it would have gone right through his eye and out the back of his head. And there's Obi-Wan Kenobi looking at him like, the fuck are you doing? So yeah, but so that was like, to me, that was a deep cut for this whole, don't look down the tube of this thing, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
He grabs it, he's like, it's your father's weapon. And he looks right down the freaking hole of the lightsaber. I was like, oh my God. So I had a great chuckle at the whole, you'll put your eye out with that thing moment.
That's
pretty funny.
That's another great thing about Star Wars is that it goes back in time to where that was an actor's choice, was to be like, oh, this is the light. And he had no idea of really the mechanics behind it that we all know today. So like now somebody does that shit and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like a live grenade, man. Don't hold that up to your face.
Yep. Well, and originally, part of what Lucas, the way he explained that away, is originally lightsabers weren't supposed to be able to be turned on unless you had the Force. So that was his original plan, was the only way you could turn one on is with the Force, and then they changed that. So I think that's part of how he explained away him looking down the tube of a lightsaber. But it's pretty funny, and you'll never unsee it if you ever go back and watch the original Star Wars. You'll see him do that and go, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" So, yeah, I'm excited for next week, and I did love that we see that Cara Dune is now. That's what that medallion was. Is they made her a Marshal of the New Republic, so she's official and she's good to go. So I like that. I'm excited for next
Carl
week.
Weathers
Guys.
comes back too.
Yeah, I think you'll see. Well, I love how her face changed when he's asking to see. He's like, "You got to tell me how to find Mayfield." And she's like, I've been legit, man. I can't help you. I got to do all this stuff the right way. And then she goes, they have the kid. And she's like, oh, shit. Time to break some rules.
Fuck yeah. It's on now.
Right.
But it also opens up an interesting question to, we have our X-Wing fighters that are not going to be happy about them breaking Mayfield out of prison because they let him go partially because he captured those guys in the first season. So now all of a sudden, we might get these X-Wing guys helping them out at some point too, because they're chasing down a piece of the Empire.
What if they tie in like the first 2 episodes that Madsen hated about this season to like be the ending of like why everything makes sense? That'd be so beautiful.
Yep. Well, I mean, if you think about it, you now have a bunch of, because he likes to gather his allies, right? So you've got Cobb Vanth that could come in. The guy may not have the armor anymore, but he was still a gunslinger. He knows how to fight. He's a tricky little bastard. You've got Boba and Fennec who are with him. You've got the Night Owls that might possibly show up. You've got Cara and Grief Karga. So there's a lot of people that could be pulled into this mix. The 2 X-Wing fighters, the frog people, who the hell knows?
The frog people. Seriously.
So, anyway, I'm excited. I can't wait for next week. And so check us out. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we close this thing down?
I think my biggest disappointment with this episode was that our little podcast episode was longer than it was.
I know.
It was like 29 minutes.
That's fair.
It was short. It was short.
Yeah, I had to Google it, and it said on Google 32 breathless minutes. Like the first thing, like the Google answer. I was like, fuck, I can't wait to watch that now.
Yeah, it was short. And that's the crazy part is it's 33 minutes long, but it's 33 minutes with the opening intro and the end credits. It's not like the actual content. It's like Ian said, it's only like 28 or 29 minutes. So very short.
I thought this would be Ian's favorite episode because they blew up the fucking ship and it's just gone now.
No, because I'm expecting them to bring it back and I'm going to hate that.
Now I am too, actually. I thought it was gone for good. I'm like, oh, fuck. They're going to put it together. The little red-eyed guys are going to put it together.
I don't think they bring that one back, but I do feel like he's going to get a ship. Probably they'll find him some old piece of shit Razor Crest from.
No, man, it needs to be Slave 2.
Oh, dude, I'm in. If he's flying around in a slave, oh, I mean, that would be awesome.
That would be so-
Awesome. Slave's a cool ship. All right. Well, again, if you guys want to listen to our other episodes, you can find those on YouTube. For this particular, you can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on Facebook. You'll see this in a replay. You can also communicate with us. Let us know what else you want to talk about. If you have questions, I'm always happy to answer those. Join us for our next episode. We'll see you next Sunday at 1:30 Mountain Time, 3:30 Eastern, where we do our live. It'll be at about episode 15 or chapter 15. I can't wait to see what that one's all about and how the story moves forward. We appreciate you tuning in and listening. Let us know if there's anything else. Jay, again, as always, it's always fun to chat with you about these things, man. And Ian, I chat with you every other day, so always a pleasure, my friend.
Nothing special.
Yeah, you guys. All right, well, that is our review for chapter 14, The Tragedy. We'll catch you guys on the next one.